teeny bob routine, so this is fun. So just some announcements. So we had our vote for Paul on Sunday, and it was heavily in favor for Paul. So Paul will be our new senior pastor. So I know some of you guys were here Sunday. Jamala went around and said, and then she sent out a text. So Paul is our new pastor. So be excited. These are good times coming for a church, and it's a good process here, and it went pretty smooth as smooth can go. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited about this. Along with Pastor, his celebration is September 7th. So if you haven't signed up, sign up. It's just so we can know a good count. So if you're here, sign up on the clipboard, or you can sign up online also. We give you both ways. That is going to be September 7th, and the start is 6 p.m. It's going to be a sweet time, just celebrating with Pastor Ken and Kathy, and just everyone, and seeing some familiar faces, some old faces, and it'll just be a good time of celebration for Pastor Ken and Kathy and what they've done here for NBC. And then the last announcement is the yard sale. That is coming up quick, so if you have some old stuff that you just don't want anymore, or if you have stuff that you do want that you think, I just don't need it anymore, come sell at the yard sale. It'll be September 14th at 8 a.m., and that's everything. So I'm going to pray, and then let's just jump right in. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing me to preach and just teach over here, Lord. I just pray for this service, and just thank you for the vote, Lord, and just the smooth process, and just thank you for Pastor Ken and Kathy have done for this church, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. So I'm very excited to be over here. It's been a while, and so I was trying to figure out what I was going to teach. It's been a fun, busy week. I have had some big things happen. I'm gonna share that later. Some people in this room already know my big news, but I can't share it yet. So that's just to wet your beak a little bit, make you wait and figure out what it's gonna be. You may know, you may not know, who knows? But I will share it after. I've been thinking a lot, and as some of you know, I'm in charge of the college and career group, and so they asked. Part of what we're doing is we're talking about faith and what that means, and kind of, you can break it down into kind of 8 sections, and the section we were on is talking about lazy faith and kind of us getting stagnant in things, and a big question to ask, because I like discussion, and so I like making sure that we discuss questions and things, and so a big question I ask is, what is one thing that you think could change the culture in this world? And it gave a big list of things. It gave a good kind of things that we generally want. And what I answered was 2 things. Love. We need more love in this world, and just that brotherly love and sharing in that. But there was another thing, and that was respect. I feel like we're missing some respect in this world and just going on today. And so that's what we're really going to be talking about. If I can get it. Can you click on my first slide there, please? So we're going to be talking about respect today, and just kind of what that looks like. How do we respect others? What kind of respect do we need to give? Is it for someone specific, or is it a broadcast? We are going to hit on that. And so I'm just going to give you my points now. I have 3 points. It's talking about respecting our elders, respecting those in authority, and respecting ourselves, and within that, other people. I know it's 4, but the last one it's a 2-parter point. So we're gonna go over those, and we're gonna see how we give respect, what that looks like, how we can give it better. So before we kind of jump into heading into those topics, we're gonna be talking about these 2 guys, these 2 prophets. A guy named Elijah. So I think you may need to click on it for me. This has died, so you'll just have to click through. Next slide. So we're going to be talking about this guy Elijah, and so just some context and overview on Elijah. So Elijah did some great things. He did a lot of great things. An example of that is that he was fed by ravens sent by the Lord. So if you know me, I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. He had ravens sent to him. So if you thought ravens were just dirty birds and these filthy creatures, God used them. So that just means Ravens are great things, and you guys can all cheer for the Ravens this upcoming season. That's what it means to me. David, I know it's going to be hard being a Bills fan, but this just shows you Ravens are not terrible creatures like we think. God used them also. But this is an example of what was used and what was done. And, God uses things that we don't even expect or that we may not think, oh, yeah, he can't use that. He can't use me. God used ravens. God used donkeys. He uses things that we may not think. And so Elijah was a great example of that. And, I don't have time to go over all these great things that Elijah has done and all these things, the overview of it. But if you guys want to do a study and look at kind of some things and learn more about Elijah, you can be found in 1 Kings 17 through 19. That has a good chunk of that. And then 2 Kings 1 through 2. Now, the second guy that we're going to be talking about and that we're really going to be focused on is Elisha. So he was Elijah's student, and ultimately he became his successor. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about kind of that transition from Elijah and Elisha to Elijah taking over that kind of mantle that he was in. And this story that we're going to be in, it's one of my favorite stories to learn about, to talk about. It's kind of a two-parter and a two-fold story. It just gives us some good context of one respecting. And I think the second part of the story is my favorite. And as a youth, we've gone over it, and we have shirts made for it. So that's how favorite it is of mine. So we'll get into that. But if everyone wants to, we will be in 2 Kings tonight, and we are going to be in chapter 2. So while you are turning there, and then we're going to be looking at verses 1 through 11, just so you guys know where I'll be at, and so we can follow along. So I'm going to break this up into two parts. So first part we are going to look at is verses 1 through 4. So I will read that to you. And it came to pass, when the Lord was about to take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Then Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho. So we're at this first part, kind of an overview of what's happening here. Elijah is telling Elisha that he's going to be taken up to heaven by the Lord in a whirlwind. Now, just that part, that would have me, why whirlwind? That's something. I don't know about that. And that would pique my interest if someone says, "I'm going to be taken up by a whirlwind." So I'm sure that took Elisha back because, that's not something he's expected. He's not ready for this yet. He knows they've been together a long time, and so it's kind of taken him aback. And Elijah is telling Elisha that he has to stay and continue the mission. And he's saying, "You got to stay here. I'm going to be taken up, but you have to continue on. You have to keep doing the good fight. You have to keep doing this." But Elisha's a hardhead. Now, if you ask my girlfriend, I'm a hardhead. I'm very hard-headed, and I can agree with her on that. I'm stubborn as a mule, and it's just a bad thing sometimes. But I can understand that he's hard-headed. He doesn't want this to happen. He's like, "I don't think so. You're my guy. You're my teacher. You're my friend. We've been through so much together. I just don't want this to happen. I'm not ready for this yet." But he says, it's going to happen. And so he says, "But we got to go to Jericho, but you're going to stay here." He said, "That's not happening. I'm going to go with you. We're going to do this thing still together." And so they still stick together because he's hard-headed like I am. And so they keep going and they keep doing this thing, in which we're going to find out more in the second half of 2 Kings. So we're going to pick this back up in verse 5. Now, the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" So he answered, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me on to Jordan." But he said, as the Lord lives, as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on, and 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by Jordan. Now Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, and struck the water. It was divided this way and that. So the two of them crossed over on dry ground. And so it was, when they had crossed over, that Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask, what may I do for you? Because I am taken away from you." Elisha said, "Please, let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." So he said, "You have asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you, but if not, it shall not be so." Then it happened, as they continued on and talked, that suddenly a chariot of fire appeared with two horses of fire and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into the heavens. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen." So he saw him no more. He took hold of his own clothes and tore them into pieces. So we get to the second part. We see that he's still acting the same way. He said, "I'm going to go up in a whirlwind. You got to stay here." And he says, no. So he's still being a hard-headed person. But they go to Jericho, and now they head to the Jordan. Now, once they reach it, the two men get there, and they come to a river. Now, Elijah rolls up his robe, and he hits on the ground. He splashes on the Jordan. It parts from left to right, or this and that way, and it spreads open, and so they're able to walk and go through on that dry ground. Now, at this point, Elijah probably knows he could be taken up to heaven at any second at this point. He knows it's going to happen. He doesn't know when, but it's going to be something that's going to happen at this moment, and he just doesn't know. And so he's trying to prepare Elisha a little bit. Says, this is going to happen. It's not an if, it's not a maybe, it's going to be. And so Elisha asks for a portion of his spirit. And Elijah says he can have it as long as he can see him after he's taken this, but if not, then no. So he's saying you can have it if this happens, but if not, if this doesn't happen, or if it doesn't work out this way, you can't have it. It's just not going to be. So at that moment, this chariot of fire and horses comes, and a whirlwind happens, and it takes Elijah up. Now, if this is me, and I'm seeing this, I'm going to be standing in awe, confusion. I don't know what's going on. My jaw's just going to hit the floor, but also an amazement and wonder at this, because it really happened as Elijah said it was going to happen. He wasn't just saying it to say it, that this thing really happened. Now, he just said whirlwind. He didn't say chariot of fire and horses were going to come. So it just adds another layer that could be surprising to him. But this happened. And so now Elisha is surprised. And now Elisha is at this moment taking up his master's mantle. He has to do what his master told him to do and what they had been on this journey for. So now we've gotten to this part. The rest of the story goes like this. Elisha picks up this cloak also, and he goes back the same way. He does the same thing that Elijah had done. He smacks the cloak on the ground and the water left to right, and he splits the sea open also. And he crosses into that path down that nice dry ground. And so he knows, okay, I've done this, and he gets back to Jordan. And the company of prophets that were traveling with him saw this and went to him and bowed to him, saying, "The spirit of Elijah is with him." Now, they wanted to help him and go look for Elisha's master. But he said, "No, don't go. You don't need to do that. You don't need to look for Elijah. It's just a wasted effort. We're good. We don't need to do this thing. It's just an unnecessary step." But they kept pestering him and said, "We need to do this." Elisha's like, "No, we don't." They said, "We need to do this." He's like, "No, we don't." And he says, "We need to do this." And if someone asks you over and over and over and over again, you're going to break down, unless you're like me, who does not break down so easily. But Elisha was not like me. He said, "Okay, we'll go do this." And he just was too embarrassed to say no until this thing happened. And so he's like, okay, we'll do this, we'll go and look. And so that's kind of how we conclude in that. But now we're getting into that, that section I told you that's really my favorite section of this whole thing, and the one we have shirts made. This is my section that we're going to talk about. So we're going to be still in chapter 2, but go to verses 23, and then we're going to be reading through 25. Now, then he went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up the road, some youths came from the city and mocked him and said to him, "Go up, you bald head. Go up, you bald head." So he turned away and looked at them and pronounced a curse on them in the name of the Lord. And 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the youths. Then he went there from the Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Now, I know you may be asking, Alex, why is this your favorite story? What possibly can make this your favorite story? I'm going to tell you, don't worry, it's not because the youths were mauled and all that. I promise I'm not that bad of a guy in that, but we'll get to it. So, this story is wild. It's crazy because it's so fast-paced. So much happens in 3 verses. Like, that just happened, and it did. So, Elisha is continuing what him and Elijah have been doing. He continues on that journey and doing the things that they've been doing, and they go up and went to Bethel. And these 2 boys came out of the city and basically were mocking Elisha for having a bald head, I guess. Not a reason to mock someone and insult someone, but that's what they did. They made a mockery of him, said, "Hey, you baldy, bald-headed man, bald, bald, bald." They just kept going on and on with that. And so they were disrespecting him. They had no reason to. But they kind of went further into that mockery of Elisha. So they added this part, go up or go on up. Essentially what they're doing is they are mocking how Elijah had been taken up by this whirlwind. So they're adding, not only insulting him and his personal self, they're insulting his master and how that all went about. And so, you know how you get when someone insults a loved one of yours, a friend of yours, and just, don't you get a little upset and just a little angry? I know I do if someone insults someone I love or someone like that. That's kind of how Elisha was at this point. He was a little upset. I'm sure it was more of his master than the bald-headed part. He may have accepted that in his life stage. I don't know. But it just added more insult to injury there. And so this is what baffles us. I think it baffles most people hearing this story is that he calls a curse down in the name of the Lord, and 2 bears come out of the woods. And it comes and it mauls and kills 42 of these boys. And then Elijah leaves and continues his journey. That's a baffling thing right there, He does this, 2 bears come, they attack these 42 boys, and he just goes. It's like nothing happened, it's just a regular day. But why I like this story so much and why it's a good reminder for us, it's a good reminder for the youth because it teaches us respect in a way. What they were doing is disrespectful. They were not respecting his elders. And so, unfortunately, in this case, the disrespect they got was these bears coming down and mauling these boys. It wasn't just the 2 boys who ultimately did the mocking, but it was 40 more others involved in this. Now, it's just an extreme thing that happened. Yes, it's wild, it's crazy, but it was to teach them a lesson. I think it's to teach us a lesson on truly disrespecting others and showing disrespect to people really involves and entails for us. Now, that doesn't mean if we're going to disrespect someone, 2 bears are going to come out wherever we are and maul us. Now, I love bears. Bears are my favorite animals with wolves, so 2 bears come out of the woods. The nature man in me wants to go pet them. I know it's not a good idea. I may do it. You can call me stupid for that. I just don't know. I love bears that much. But that does not mean when you do these things or when you disrespect someone that bears are going to come out and maul you. That's not the point of this. And what you need to get is that there are consequences sometimes to the things we do and disrespecting other elders and people that we should be respecting. That comes some form of punishment. It's going to come from that, whether we see that coming or not. Now, it can be extreme like that. I hope not, but it can be as a low extreme. We have to be prepared for that. If we want to venture down that road and venture down and say, I'm going to choose just not to respect XYZ, I don't care what happens. We have to be prepared for that then, right? If we're gonna accept that burden on ourselves, then we need to be prepared for some sort of consequence to happen. Now, it's not saying that I'm just saying this. I haven't ever disrespected anyone. I for sure have in my life. I think I did it the other day, and I got a consequence for it. But we see things that happens for this, and that's why we need to be prepared, and we need to know why it's important to respect basically everyone, no matter where we're at. I'm going to get further down in that and give you a little story on kind of how that really goes. So I told you there were 3 points. Point 1 is we need to respect our elders. Now, it's usually a general rule of thumb and usual general rule when you read these verses, the ones before and then this one, is that we have to respect our elders. That's kind of the general premise you get when you read these. Okay, I understand. I got to respect my elders. I got to do this. But it's more than that. We got to take it further than that. No matter what phase of life we're in, there is always someone who is older than us, who is wiser than us. They have valuable wisdom that they can impart on us, and we need to be able to have an open mind and be able to look at them saying, you've been through this, you know some things, and we got to respect them. The reason why I did elders first is because not because there's mileage on lives or whatnot. It's because they've experienced things that some of us have not experienced in life yet and are able to impart that wisdom. With the teens, I like to impart things. I don't like riding ATVs. I just think they're terrible machines. That's because I crashed into a tree and gashed my knee open. So I like to tell them they're devil machines and you should never ride them ever in your life. But they're not going to listen to me in that way. So I say you have to be careful when you ride something like that. You have to wear a helmet. I was not wearing a helmet. I'm lucky I didn't crack my skull open. But I'm imparting wisdom upon them because it's something I've been through already. It's something that I've experienced. I can speak to it. I'm also older than them, so I know a little bit about it. And so I'm trying to impart that wisdom on them. Say, hey, you don't have to like what I'm saying about it, but just show me a little respect because I know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking gibberish. I'm not just speaking on things I don't know about. And so we get to this, and we got to think, okay, maybe there is some validity. Maybe there is something to this part about people who have come before me. My elders do know a thing or two. And when Leviticus 19:32 says this, and it urges us to stand up in the presence of the aged and show respect for the elderly and revere your God. We can learn a vast amount from people who came, and we can gain something. Now, you don't have to take everything, but there's something we can gain from someone who has come before us. Proverbs 19:20 says, listen to the advice, accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future. That taking advice, taking instruction, and gaining wisdom is an important part. Once you've gone through something, you have that wisdom, you have that knowledge of something that you've been through, that you've had experience in your life. Most of you guys know my story of, my father was killed when I was in 8th grade. I know that grief, I know that pain, but I can speak to that. I can speak to someone who is going through that, say, I've been where you're at. I know what it's like. I know the steps you're going to go through. I know the pits you're going to fall into, because you're going to fall into pits. I'm still in pits sometimes. That's okay to say, but I know what I'm speaking on. I can impart that wisdom, and thus they now have this wisdom that they can share to someone else. That's why it's important, no matter what age we're at, from me being at 30 to anyone to 90, there is still someone who is older that we can show respect to and still listen to. So I know people tell me, you're 30, you don't need to listen to anyone. I absolutely need to be listening to people because they know more than me. And if they can help me from stumbling, I'm going to take that advice every chance I get. I may not like it all the time, but I'm going to listen. And so that's why respecting our elders is the first important step. Number 2, we need to respect those who have authority over us, or respect those in charge. Now, what this means is that anyone who is in charge over you. Now, this is a pretty easy one. For those who work, your boss, show them respect. In this church setting, Pastor Ken, while he's still here, Pastor Brandon, Paul when he gets here, staff, deacons, these are people who are over us that we need to show respect. Like I said, in a work setting, your boss. We can even go further than that. Police officers, we can go higher than that. Government. Now, no matter, we're not going to get into that. That's a whole can of worms that I'm not ever going to speak on. But we still have to listen to those in authority, whether we like it or not. Sometimes we don't like it. I know we all can agree on that. There are things that people are going to say who are going to direct us that we are not going to like what they have to say or tell us what we have to do or like to do. It's the nature of it, isn't it? I know some of us have been given instructions from people that are higher up that we don't like, right? I've been through it, but we have to listen to those in authority. But there is an exception to that. Yes, we must listen to those in authority. That's what's stated. He tells us that. But if it starts to contradict what God has said or the Bible has said, then we need to take a hard look. If it's going against Scripture, if it's going against God, then okay, we need to be thinking, hey, this isn't something I need to be listening then. But we need to be ready for the consequences of that, though. Things could happen in that. If it's on a larger scale, we could be thrown in jail. But that's the price we're willing to pay if we're going to be doing that and saying, if it goes against Scripture, if it's going against God, I can't say no. I can't disobey that because, one, we're respecting and showing our faith and reverence to God in that. And so we have to figure out those times when, all right, I have to listen to authority or I'm not going to listen to this part. And so it's not where we're going to go rogue or anything like that, but you have to pray on it. You have to assess that situation in it. And it's not easy. It's hard to do. It's hard to figure out sometimes. Sometimes it's blatantly easy. Like, okay, this truly goes against. But we have to be aware and we have to be ready for those things. And then we hit this last point. Respect each other and yourself. Now, what does this look like? Now, respecting each other, I think we can naturally get that one, but what does the respecting yourself means? We'll get to that. Respecting each other. We need to have for fellow peers and others to respect them. What this looks like is not tearing others down, but lifting people. And now we're in this world, we're all about tearing people down. We're not about building others up. And like I told you earlier, within teaching the young adults, we went over this. We went over what it looks like to respect others. And there are things that I will never touch not because I'm afraid to touch certain topics or things, but I just know in this world we lack a certain thing. It's that if we're talking about a topic or if we're bringing up the big P word, politics, we miss one thing. We miss how to have an actual discussion. We miss that part of how we can actually debate with one another, but at the end of the day, we're still good. And I see that missing because I had that happen not but 2 days ago, and it felt like to them they said, "Oh, you're just attacking me for all this stuff," and it's like, not doing that. I just want to have a good conversation with you. At the end of the day, shake hand and be good to go. But we're in this world that's an us versus them, or it's a you versus me concept, and that's not how it should be. We ourselves shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't think it's an us versus them mentality, or that we're better than them because we know these things. It's that we need to have that genuine respect. We can disagree with people. We surely don't have to agree on every single thing. Like people, sports related. People don't agree with my Ravens thing, or that I think Maryland's the best state out of these 50 states. I see, and he's making, that's just how it is. I told my class, people are not going to agree that I think Maryland's the best state in the world. We have the best flag, crabs. We won't even touch that one. But people won't agree with me on that. That's okay. You're wrong, but it's okay. I pray for you every day when you see the light. Molly's mad at me because I put a bad picture about Chipotle. I'm calling you out. That's right. I'm not above it. So yeah, people. I don't like Chipotle. I think it's gross. Molly's floor hit the ground when she saw what I posted. It was a bad thing for her. And other people were mad about. Tim said he was praying for me. That's okay. I'm praying for him too. When let's go to Chipotle. But that shows you we all don't agree on everything, but we can have fun in it. We still show that respect. It's not a bad thing that we can disagree on things. But at the end of the day, we still show the respect in one another, and we can show that I still respect you, I still love you. We can still disagree about it, and it's okay, and we can move on with our day. And, in doing that, I love joking around with people. I just did it with a good amount of you in this room just now. I love it, but I'm not going to ever take it too far. And we get to this point where we think, how far is too far in that? And what I have to say to that is, you have to know who you're talking to. You have to know your audience. It's just how it is. Now, how I was raised by grandma and aunt who would, in a nice sense of words, say some mean things to you in a joking way. But that's just how they grew up. That's just how they talk. So I have a tougher skin than most people. So me and my girlfriend joke about this all the time, and I have to watch what I say because sometimes of how I was raised and grew up, it just doesn't come across that way to her. But I was raised differently, and you were raised differently, and so we have to kind of assess. And everyone is not the same. That's just what we have to realize, that not everyone was raised the same. Not everyone is the same, and we just have to be cognizant of that. It's not that you're going to tone down you or change you. It's just all right, this is the level someone's at. I best not go too far over that level. And that's not saying anything bad about them or anyone else. It's just and can read the room. And that's what you're doing. And that's not a bad thing. It's okay to read the room and say, okay, might not have been a good thing. I've learned from that. I've done a lot of learning from that in my past year of things. But it's that I want to be able to show love to people and still respect them and still have a good time. And once you kind of apply these things and think of those things, it's not really like, okay, I got to try real hard to do this and not do this. It just becomes a second nature thing, and it becomes easy. It's like, okay, I got it, cool, we're going to do this. And it's not something that's hard for us to kind of contemplate and do. Now, that's how we show respect to others. But I think the most important one is that we have to respect ourselves. Now, what does that look like? What does that even mean? I got to respect myself. What do I do? What that means is, you got to eat right, which there's a lot of good food out there that's not good for us, but I love me some food. I talked about crabs earlier. I want crab now. I'm going to get me some crab later. But we got to eat right, because if we have a healthy body, things are going to go well for us. You got to get enough sleep. Sleep is important. Now, some of us have jobs where that makes it hard for us, but we have to actively try to do so many things. And the big part of taking care of yourself that I think is an important one that I think we throw to the wayside is self-care. Doing self-care for yourself is so important. When we throw it away and we take these moments of caring for ourselves, and we add busyness into our lives. But what does that look like, Alex? How do I practice self-care? How you practice self-care is going to be different than how I practice self-care. How I do it is, if I have a day off, I like going to play disc golf. I may sleep 5 hours, and that's how I like doing things. How I do it, you may not want to sleep 5 hours of your day away. That's totally fine. but you need to find out for you what gets you and your mind in a sense of rest and calm and peace. Now, maybe for some people, it's watching kids, watching their grandkids, watching their own kids. Maybe that's your peace. Maybe that's your calm. Then do that. Do the things that are going to make you feel comfortable and happy and just, because we all have busy lives, don't we? I have a busy life. So I know if I do, I know the rest of us have a busy life in doing things. And we need to be finding those moments of I don't need to do anything that's related to work. Now, if you don't like taking care of your grandkids on the day, maybe you need to find a day off. I don't know. I can't tell you what to do, but find that moment of rest for yourself, because it's not worth it to burn yourself out, to kill yourself in doing things when you're not resting and taking care of the temple that God's given us. We only have this one body. Let's treat it right and do things that actively help us get rest. And within self-care, we think, maybe my mind isn't right, and therapy is what we need to do. Do that also. I'm a big proponent of therapy and doing what you need to do to get your mind right, because it's all within self-care, because you're taking care of you. And maybe that little bit of worry that you have for other people needs to put to a wayside, and you need to worry about you in that. That's how you take care of yourself. And doing these little things, just eating right, just getting enough sleep, and going out and taking a walk or riding your bike or doing whatever you have to do to take care of the body that God's given us. And just take a little bit of calmness and peace for yourself. And that's not a bad thing. So we need to be actively doing these small little steps in that. Now, I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, a lot of things on respect and what we need to do, but the main point here is not to scare you into thinking that, like I said, that two bears are going to come out of these woods if you disrespect someone. That's not at all what this was about. It was that that we have to have respect for yourself and for other people. Those are the two. That's how you can sum this all up. Respect you and respect other people. Respect your elders. Respect those in authority. Respect your peers, your friends, your coworkers. Just show that respect in these little ways. And you can see your life change in a good way when you start showing that and not being negative or having snide comments or whatnot. Well, you have it. If you do these little things, you see, oh, something big starts to happen, a change in you. You know, people see that change. Like, what's going on different with them that it's not with me? And there's your gateway into showing the gospel. Like, God's doing things through me. He can do things through you also. So, you know, it's a hard road, but it's a fun and worthwhile road to do when you can say, okay, I feel better about this. I know things are rough, but I can still show my respect. If we're respecting and loving God like we should be doing, we need to be showing that to other people also. And these are great examples for us to start and a good starting point for each and every one of us. So, guys, that's all I have for us tonight. I know we're going to get into our time of prayer, but I'm going to pray us out. And then once you take us offline, I'm going to give you guys that secret I know you've been pining to figure out for me the whole night. So let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for this time, for just showing us what respect looks like and how we can respect not only you, but other people, your people, Lord, and just applying these small steps into our lives and what we need to be doing, Lord. I just thank you for this night. I just thank you as we get into our time of prayer, Lord, and honoring you and loving you. In Jesus' name.